On today's episode of Refashioned, we're talking about a brand that created a £170 polyester bag, how AI is working itself into fashion and why that's a bad thing, and by popular demand, my thoughts on PrettyLittleThing's quiet luxury rebrand that is anything but luxury, as well as a couple of other updates. So let's get into it. First off, welcome back to my podcast, Refashioned. These episodes are where I waffle on about topics that maybe aren't long enough for me to make a dedicated video on and end up being very chatty, very informal, and a little bit messy. So if that sounds right up your street, then make sure you're following me on Spotify, Apple, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, then hit subscribe. And with that, let's get into it. Starting with Peachy Den and their bowler bag selling for £170 made entirely from polyester. So I got sent a message from someone who follows me on Instagram asking for my thoughts on this bag after it popped up on their feed and they found the price quite shocking. And I did kind of cover this on my Instagram stories, but I wanted to share it on here too, and I wanted to expand on my thoughts because I didn't want to bombard everyone with like 20 stories. One thing that I'm finding equally funny and a little bit scary is that I know the brand saw my initial Instagram story covering this, saying something like £170 for a polyester bag, are you joking? Because as I'm going to go into, I don't feel like this is the worst brand in the world. I did briefly say on Instagram that I feel like Peachy Den fits into a certain category of brands that are thriving right now, alongside kind of influencer brands and celebrity brands, where they're selling things for a pretty high price point. And in our current state of the industry, that is an outlier in itself, considering the fact that fashion is kind of dividing into luxury brands with unattainably high prices, or the ultra fast fashion brands of the world like Shein and Temu, who are racing to the bottom. And these mid-tier brands are slowly sort of dying out, but I feel like for some of them, they're actually thriving in this market and they're actually being able to convince consumers to pay more for their products. And in my mind, the reasons for this is because these brands have such strong identities, such strong editorial shoots, such strong marketing and aesthetics that they push to people, and such strong community that it almost becomes a cult. I think people are seeing these brands as not only like an attainable luxury almost, because with that price point, you are kind of subconsciously thinking that you're going to get quality or you're going to get something better than Shein. But the brands are also purposefully building on this search for community that is just a constant trend online right now by tailoring their marketing to feel friendly, like calling their customers besties or hosting exclusive events for their best customers that kind of reward this brand loyalty. And really, this is the only thing letting them get away with pricing a bag for £170 that is 100% polyester. Like, the marketing and the editorial design for this bag is so strong, and they're definitely selling it. Like, even I was like, oh, I really like this product. But a bowler bag is not new. Like, we talked about this in my duping video, the fact that fashion is often referential and you can often get something that a brand is selling for a high price point, secondhand or vintage, and have it be better quality. Like a bowler bag, secondhand or vintage, will not be hard to get your hands on. And it's just a renewal of a design that has been around for ages. And yet, because fashion has decided that a bowler bag is the new it girl bag and people are reviving the style and loving it, Peachy Den have decided to remake the style but in 100% PU leather. And I feel like, just going back to the part about price points quickly, there is just this undercurrent in their marketing that because you're paying £170, you're almost getting like an investment piece. This is not just a throwaway thing. This is something you're going to value forever, without really referencing the fact that the bowler bag is a trend right now, and that's a main reason why they've released it. I saw this tweet actually, which I think completely explains this situation. Brands love calling their coats investment pieces as if they'll appreciate and value. Babe, this is not a Chanel bag, it's a wool blend with commitment issues. Like, literally, in this case, the value of the bag is not actually tangible in terms of what it's made from. It's your perceived value of the bag. And if you are just buying into this trend because you want to fit in with the peachy girl aesthetic, then you're constantly going to be chasing the style they're pushing rather than focusing on what makes you feel good. And when Peachy Den inevitably move on to pushing a new product, you're no longer going to value your bowler bag. Does that make sense? And the thing is, and I want to be fair, is that I really like this bag. I think it's a super cute design. I think because we're seeing a lot of the retro sporty aesthetic trending recently, that's kind of warped my perception of thinking this is a really cool design, but I do think it's cute. And if we continue to be fair, I haven't seen this bag in person. I haven't even seen any of Peachy Den's products in person. So I can't firsthand verify the quality of this item. I don't know if it's like an amazing bag that just so happens to be made from polyester. And I know there is definitely an argument sometimes that polyester is the best material. I don't know, but why is it made of polyester when it's £170? Like that's a kind of price point where you have to ask why it's not made from better materials, right? I mean, at least the brand hasn't been using the vegan leather marketing that has been crucified lately. Like, I feel like this is a point in their favor. They are at least quite open about the fact that it's PU leather, and they do have quite a comprehensive sustainability page on their website. I haven't dug into them, so just kind of disclaimer there, but it feels different to the Sheins and the Temus of the world. It feels like this brand is trying to be sustainable. I just wonder how this bag fits into that. And going back to the Instagram stories quickly, I did do a poll on one of them saying like, do you think this is a fair price? Because I wanted to get other people's reactions. I wanted to hear whether £170 for a polyester bag, which is cute, is a fair price. But of the 103 people who replied to my poll, no one thought it was a fair price. Literally 103 people said no. Feel free to comment below what you think about this. Weigh in on your thoughts about whether you think 170 is the right price. And I think we should move on to the PrettyLittleThing rebrand, because I had people screaming at me in my call out post for what I should cover in today's podcast that PrettyLittleThing needed to be covered. Okay, I know I have quite an international audience, so if you don't know PrettyLittleThing, it's a British brand that's very well known as fast fashion here. And recently they tried to cause a stir by shutting down that website and promising a rebrand. And then when they reopened the website and launched this rebrand, it was just some blazers and waistcoat variations, like just quite luxury aesthetic. They're very much leaning into this old money trend going on with just very neutral tones, boring workweary staples. And yeah, I think you can tell that I'm just not impressed. When the site opened, I had a look through it. I found that in their sales section, they are currently trying to shift some of that old stock, meaning that there is thousands of styles discounted that no longer fit this rebrand. And there's also immediately 30% off the whole site. So take from that what you will, that immediately they're trying to discount these amazing new items that they've purposely rebranded for. I actually saw a billboard showing this outside the station when I was traveling yesterday, put it on my Instagram story and called it bland washing, because this is what this is to me. To which I got a few replies asking me what that means. And I think I've made this term up. To me, bland washing describes the way fast fashion brands are increasingly pivoting towards a quiet luxury, old money, just boring workwear aesthetic to sell luxury clothes that are anything but luxury, because they're not also updating their sustainability or the way they make clothes and the quality of their craftsmanship. It's all just a facade or a bland wash. Obviously playing on greenwashing, which I do think is happening here. Why has PrettyLittleThing decided to rebrand, and why have they decided to rebrand this way? What are they trying to sell to consumers by pushing these beige and muted colour products? I mean, it's not very clear. The press release included phrases like building a legacy in progress, which PrettyLittleThing's legacy is literally poor working conditions, stealing other people's designs, poor quality clothing, and just like bad ethics in general. So I think sit down. Why would you want to continue that legacy? They also described in the press release that this rebrand promises to redefine accessible luxury for a new generation. What is luxury about polyester and sweatshops? I mean, words mean things. Come on, you can't just say your items are luxury without backing them up. I mean, so after sitting with this for a little bit, I've kind of come to the conclusion that this could be a a slightly good thing, in the way that I feel like it exposes just how shallow fast fashion is, just how little their marketing means when it comes to the luxury of their products. So many of these new items from the rebrand are 100% polyester. Like, that's already been called out by multiple people. The fact that this luxury image is built around plastic clothing. I mean, if anyone believes this is anything but an excuse for them to raise their prices because they can't continue to try match Shein's rock bottom pricing strategy, then I'm gonna give up a little bit. I think like it's just so transparent what they're trying to do, how they're trying to pivot to a more expensive price point with this like facade of luxury workwear polyester crap. Although apparently I think there are people who are falling for this. So yeah. Some interesting things other people have pointed out from this rebrand is the logo. PrettyLittleThing went from quite a blocky logo to this kind of italic, and as this tweet from NYCX Clothes says, glittery font. Like, of course, fast fashion would also be cosplaying the well-read consumer aesthetic that's mainstream now, which I think is very interesting. People are also pointing out that there's an obvious change to the models that PrettyLittleThing are now using. A lot skinnier, a lot more Ozempic coded. People say that they removed the BBL fashion aesthetic that they previously capitalized on. And I think that's just, again, a symptom of a changing industry that is promoting a thinner aesthetic right now. So like I said, I was scrolling through the website once they rebranded because I was very curious. I wanted to know exactly what this rebrand would mean. And I'm sorry, but we have to focus on this coat because it literally made me stop scrolling and stare for a minute. Not only does it look visibly cheap, even through our screens, even through the e-com shoot, which is supposed to sell the clothes, the fact that the title is a wool look has me screaming, like genuinely has me screaming. What do you mean wool look? I'm going to give you 3 seconds to guess what the composition of this product is. 100% polyester. Yes, you guessed it right. And 175 actual dollars. Do you know when you can just like look at a product online and you just know how bad it's going to feel in your hands? Like, I can feel this material. I have felt this before, and I just know how awful it would feel to your fingertips just based on this e-com shoot alone and the material composition. So I'm going to be so curious to see how the sales for this collection do. But I just don't see how people are going to be sold by these products. I mean, again, looking through the rest of them, I pulled out some examples of the worst things I found on the website. And I know this is a podcast, so some of you are just listening, but please look at your screen for a minute, because what are these? Where are you wearing these? Who is this for? It feels like this is like building on the office siren aesthetic that deluded a lot of people as to what they can get away with in the office. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine you showed up in one of these things to the office. I think you would be immediately called into HR. But where else are you going to wear this? Where else are you wearing a plunging blazer dress that goes into a bubble skirt? Is that the most chronically online outfit you have ever seen? Sorry, that's a little bit judgmental. Maybe this is someone's style, but I don't see how this is being peddled to the masses. Like, other than an Instagram influencer posing perfectly to sell this dress, I don't think it's going to work on anyone. I'm willing to be proved wrong. I think it would be interesting to see how people are styling this, and I will be looking at TikTok to see. But yeah, I have no hope for this collection. I have no hope that this is going to be a collection of clothes that people receive and value for years. This really just feels like a quick cash grab to get PrettyLittleThing out of a hole that they have dug themselves. And I don't want to be any more mean than I already have, but it's 2 thumbs down from me. Okay, on to something slightly more positive, because I feel like we've just gone through some controversial topics. Let's talk about what I've been up to recently, because it's been learning to sew, and I'm very excited about this. At the start of the year, I wanted to push myself to learn to sew, learn to repair and upcycle my own clothing, because I feel like it's so important and because I feel like it's something I should be doing in my role as a sustainable fashion content creator and journalist. I also feel like for anyone, learning how to sew is such a good life skill and it's such a good skill to have. But this is also one of the easiest ways to be sustainable in your wardrobe. But anyway, I bring this up because I've done some upcycling projects and some repairing projects recently, and I wanted to show you guys what I've managed to do. So in terms of upcycling, I turned one of my favorite Ghani dresses into a kind of dress slash skirt. Basically, I had a dress that had a sheared top and then some sheared like strap sleeves, and I just didn't like the sleeves on the garment. I felt like they were too thick and they looked quite clunky, and they also brought the neckline up too high, and I found that I was trying to style it as a skirt for my outfits, but unless I was wearing a very baggy top over the top, it would kind of bunch with the sleeves at my waist, and I didn't like the look of that. I decided that if I don't like the sleeves anyway, why not take them off, and then it can become a strapless dress, or if I want it to, it can become a very long skirt. I think it's really, really cute, and I'm so happy I did it. And it wasn't that hard. I just used a seam unpicker to unpick the straps, and they came apart really easily. Now I'm currently thinking about what I can do with these scrap pieces of fabric. So if you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments below, because I do want to reuse them. I've just been waiting for what feels good. And then the other fun project I did was last night, actually, I went to a patchwork repair workshop with Give Your Best, which I did a video on. If you haven't watched it, they're an amazing company that's trying to eradicate clothing poverty here in the UK, and they often put on workshops. This time they did it with sustainable fashion influencer Lydia Bolton. It was very nice to meet Lydia. It was lovely to catch up with the Give Your Best team and also meet everyone who had come along to the community event too, including someone who had actually found Give Your Best through my video and now volunteers there. So shout out, you know who you are. It was so lovely to meet you. And yeah, going back to the workshop, I managed to upcycle one of my old totes and add some patches and make it a little bit more fun and colourful. I actually learned a new type of hand stitch, which is a blanket stitch, and I was really proud of myself for doing that, and I love the final look. So yeah, I'm proud of myself. I'm happy that I'm slowly learning how to repair and upcycle, and I can't wait to keep going. I also want to learn how to darn socks, because I saw Lydia did a reel on how to do this that looked really accessible, really easy. And also I love the look of a visibly darned object. So this should be really fun, and I highly encourage you to try it as well if you can. I'm going to be putting it on my social media, and if you end up doing it, then tag me in the comments if you post it. Okay, let's move on, because I do want to talk about how AI is now being used increasingly in fashion and the implications there. So I saw a business of fashion post on Instagram that was showing some recent AI campaigns from a specific photographer, and I immediately had thoughts. I'm not massively well versed in the sustainability of AI. I know it uses a lot of energy and resources. I don't use AI in any of my work because I feel like there are ethical implications of, you know, where it's getting that data from and what it's copying and, you know, pushing creatives out of the industry. So I'm not a massive fan of AI anyway. But these campaigns in particular got me thinking about how AI might be replacing fashion shoots soon, and what that means for consumers who are trying to buy clothing, or like for brands who are selling clothing via AI generated images rather than capturing the clothing that they've actually made. Maybe it's the pessimist in me, but immediately my thoughts were that brands could use AI campaigns to sell clothing that looks a lot more perfect than the actual product that they've created, and to kind of like fix imperfections really easily so that to the consumers, it's really not clear what you're going to be able to get. And these examples that I found on the Business of Fashion Instagram are very editorial based. So it's not necessarily about selling the clothing, it's about selling the aesthetic and the idea of the brand. But Some of the best editorials, in my opinion, the ones that have made me stop and stare when looking through a fashion magazine, or the ones I remember in my head, are ones that are showing clothing in a way that also conveys a feeling, also conveys like the movement of a garment that makes you stop and think like, wow, you can tell that that is a luxury fabric, or like that garment has been constructed so well that it's able to flow like that, or the color is really popping and the richness of it. It's just like able to convey to you what that garment would feel like, what it would look like. If instead of pushing that kind of aesthetic more, instead of pushing the quality or the creativity, I guess, of a garment, like really just kind of showing what makes something special, brands are instead moving towards these campaigns that don't really say anything, in my opinion, if it's AI. Like, what do some of these campaigns even mean? I mean, you have a Miu Miu advert of a picture perfect, skinny, white, blonde model lying on a desk in a room that looks almost like an asylum. It's so bare and bright. Like, the only thing of interest in this image is the clothes, and the clothes are AI generated. So what does this say? And when I clicked on the comments for this post, the general sentiment was people agreeing. One person said, "This is morally and creatively bankrupt." Someone else said, "Thank you, I absolutely hate these." And someone else really went into it. They said, "Celebrating AI work that is built on the backbone of other people's ideas, vision, weekends away from home, etc. is a sad state of things. We want this thing," meaning AI, "to cure cancer and solve the climate crisis, not to replace the chaos and beauty of creativity with energy-sucking servers and algorithmic ideas." I think that sums it up really well. These things could have been created by a human photographer, a human model, and clothes that actually existed, but they weren't. And I just struggle to see how there's any relevance. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on this and whether you can think of a good usage for AI in creative campaigns. Okay, let's go into some award season red carpet look discourse, because I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And I saw some interesting thoughts from other people on this that I want to share. But first, who was your favorite look? I really liked Ray in Vivienne Westwood for the Oscars. Like, I love Vivienne Westwood. I loved the bright red colour. I thought it was so nice, especially since the Oscars seemed a little bit dull, I'd say. In general, the kind of theme was very silvery, very like glitzy, but like not a lot of pops of colour. So I feel like this red was just so like arresting, so in your face, that you kind of had to stop and stare. I think that was my favourite one. I did see some discourse after the Oscars red carpet in particular that I wanted to share. Basically, EcoAge's Instagram account raised a great point about the fact that on the red carpet this year, there were less true vintage pieces and more vintage inspired pieces instead, where designers had taken inspiration from vintage gowns but remade them and tailored them a little bit to whoever was wearing them, or like updated them with newness, or like something was slightly different but they'd kind of referenced an iconic gown yet not pulled that gown for their client, which felt a bit weird. And I do definitely agree, it feels like it almost misses the point of doing a vintage look if you're just recreating that vintage look, but arguably, maybe, potentially with worse quality craftsmanship, worse quality materials. But I also saw another post on Instagram from Good On You calling for the red carpets to go all vintage, kind of hinting that they maybe felt the same, maybe they felt that this vintage inspired is kind of a little bit of a cop out, how vintage feels sustainable, but recreating vintage is not really sustainable, you're just creating another garment. But anyway, they said that red carpets should maybe look into having a similar sustainability criteria that we've seen growing in fashion months with London and Copenhagen, for example, because it is often luxury brands that are dressing celebrities. And as we know on this channel, luxury brands are not doing enough towards sustainability, yet they are profiting off millions of pairs of eyes seeing their designs. And maybe we need to use celeb power to push for brands to become more sustainable if they want to dress these celebrities and get all the media attention that comes with it. I definitely think this could be a cool thing. However, I do feel like the idea of going only vintage might miss out on some opportunities of championing some smaller designers and some emerging brands that are trying to push sustainability in new, creative, fun ways, and could definitely benefit from the impact of having a celebrity wear their design. I feel like celebrities need to be doing this more. They need to be using their name and their media attention to champion the future of fashion, as well as cooling back on vintage designs as well. So I feel like there could be a little bit more of a balance here. I certainly think that some kind of sustainability criteria needs to be put in place because it is just such a missed opportunity here. Like, big celebrities are the ones with a lot of power and brands want to dress them. So there could be some real change if celebrities demand sustainability. And finally, I want to talk about the Fila Hailey Bieber collection briefly, because I think we need to talk about it. I think we need to talk about how boring it is and ask the question why these products have been created. I mean, putting the editorial shoot and like the editorial glamour of these products aside, they're so boring. There's a sweater vest and a pair of trackies and a bucket hat in this photo. Why have we created this? Like, what is this? Why have they bothered creating it? Like, the tagline was reinventing Fila classics with a modern twist. But it just feels like the kind of sportswear collections we're getting from every single brand right now. Very like tennis inspired, very just like retro sports look that everyone is doing. I just don't see why this is needed. And I think quite interestingly, Hailey Bieber said in the YouTube video that accompanied this collection, if I wouldn't wear it, I wouldn't put it out in the world. But like, this already exists in the world. These are not new designs. This is something you could easily find from any other brand, or even better, secondhand, vintage, like actually getting the vintage pieces that inspired this collection in the first place that are probably better quality. I don't know. I have a vendetta today. I have an attitude today with brands. I think they are just increasingly treating consumers like idiots and just really pushing us to consume things we don't need at all. So hopefully I've inspired you to look at these campaigns a little bit differently. One subject that I wanted to bring up is the fact that there's a trending movement online right now towards boycotting brands. And I don't know if you guys participated in the boycott of big brands that happened at the end of February, but I did. I found it really refreshing. I loved the fact that I was trying not to buy from brands at all, and I managed it quite easily. And I saw a lot of people on social media saying the same, saying that it wasn't as hard as they thought it would be. But I also received this comment when I did a call out for this podcast, asking my opinion on whether being an influencer is an ethical career when we're at the climate crisis tipping point, which is just a conversation I go back and forth with all the time. I don't want to speak for other people. I don't want to call out people. I think for myself, I really try to walk this line of ethical influencing, and I find it so important, which is why I haven't taken a paid sponsorship deal on my YouTube channel yet, or any of my social media, but especially my YouTube channel, which is my biggest audience. I'm really quite strict about what I think would be a good collab, and is the reason why I haven't taken any yet, because I want to make sure that a brand aligns with my values, and that's really important to me. And I guess, although I don't want to dig into this topic request in the way of like blaming other people, I think I want to talk about what I try to do to ethically influence, which is trying to push small brands and independent brands and secondhand and vintage shopping, and highlight businesses that are trying to increase circularity in fashion, like repair businesses or upcycling, or shops like Give Your Best, which are trying to redistribute the influx of clothing donations to help clothing poverty. I also think it's important for me to call out big brands for their attempts at greenwashing and lying to the public about their sustainability, so people can become familiar with spotting greenwashing and can use these examples to spot it from other brands too, and become more well versed about how sneaky brands can be with overcompensating for their sustainability, or just trying to push us to buy more products all the time. And I'm happy to say that this is working for me. Not only do I feel happy about the messages I'm putting out, I get a lot of lovely messages from you guys who listen to say that my content is having an impact, which makes me so happy. Like, I've had comments saying, like, because of one video, someone is contemplating whether they need to buy this purchase, or how social media constantly makes them buy. Or another comment that said, like, because I pointed out this example of a brand greenwashing, they were able to spot it with other brands on their Instagram feed, and it made them more wary of them. And just like examples of this where people are coming back to say that my content has made them a little bit more aware of the importance of sustainability in fashion. And that, again, that just makes me like so happy, I can't even describe it. So yeah, I think that's how I want to end today's podcast, on a nice positive note that although I feel social media has become too focused on shopping and, you know, selling things to other people, I think there are ways that all of us can use this kind of like system that we've built around selling to each other as a force for good, as a way to sell each other sustainability in a way, if that makes sense. It might not, but it's quite clear to me, and I guess this is also a thank you for everyone who's taken the time to write one of those lovely comments. So yeah, with that, I think this is the end of the episode. Thank you so much. Thank you if you've listened to the end. And please let me know any of your thoughts and comments on anything we've covered today. I'm always interested to hear your opinions. So yeah, have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you really soon. Bye.